Hello everyone and welcome back to my latest episode in the Let's Play series for Draft Day Sports Pro Basketball 2017, where we're with the LA Waves or Lakers trying to take that championship and bring glory back to Los Angeles. So let's have a look how we've been getting on. So we're now into February. We've recently simmed through the past month of January, and let's see how we've been doing as a team. So we've had quite an interesting month, and we'll touch on that as we go through with some of the interesting things that have actually happened to us. Not necessarily good things, but interesting things nonetheless. So if we start off here, we had an opening game. We sort of talked on last time. We had the Golden State sim, and we didn't fare too well, and we said there was a real big gap between us and the top teams within the championship, within the professional league here, but we've got a long way to go, but there were some promising signs nonetheless. So kicking off into January, we started really well in January. We had three really solid wins against first one here against Utah, where we had a really good game. What was interesting in this one was obviously Luis Scola, the veteran we brought in on a predominantly just an expiring contract, really to clear off some of Luol Deng's salary from us. Had a really good game, a 20-10 game, which was really surprising. Did make me sort of wonder about whether we're underutilising him a little bit. Maybe he's just trying to make a point there. But in terms of our actual sort of starting rotation, I mean, Gobert didn't shoot particularly well, but he did everything else apart from shoot very well. Ingram had a solid game. Same with Nance Jr. And Jose Calderon, starting to solidify that point guard position for us. With Russell sort of a bit hit and miss from the bench, really, because his shooting wasn't too great here. But nonetheless, we got a good solid win there, despite a pretty terrible sort of middle couple of quarters there. But Utah, we held them to 9 points in the second quarter, which was fantastic. So that was our first opening win of January. We then went to Portland, another playoff contender really, and we got a win there as well. So again, Jose Calderon just really holding down that point guard position for us. Look at that. I mean, 9 assists to 1 turnover, 18 points off 5-7 shooting. 4 of those, from beyond the arc, which is fantastic. The team all round performed pretty well against Portland, which was really good to see. We had some strong play against them, against a team that we're probably going to be ultimately probably competing with for that late seed playoff position. So that was really good, really promising. And then we sort of finished the 3 wins against New Orleans, where we've seemed to perform really well against them in other sort of matchups that we've played them, sort of just basically limiting Anthony Davis, which we did again here to 211 shooting. And Jose Calderon again stepping up and being the player of the game in this one with some really good stats, and it was really good. After these 3 games, I was sitting there thinking, we're looking strong here. We were actually, I think we were at one moment in time when we sort of won these 3 games, we were looking at sort of a number 6 seed in the playoffs, which is excellent. We then sort of had a bit of an up and down time, so we obviously lost to Golden State again by 11 points. We performed okay. We shot pretty well, but obviously that's where we've got to get to. And Durant again just sort of honing on why he is one of the best players in the league. We then went to Indiana and we kind of lost quite heavily here. Just that second quarter I've noticed seems to be one of our sort of weaker points. So we might want to have a look at the depth chart and see whether we can perhaps readjust that second quarter to perhaps try and make it less of a weakness for us. But Paul George again stepped up. I mean, was a player of the game when we played them last, and again he played very well for them here. Looking at our sort of starters, you'll notice that Jordan Clarkson was dropped to the bench for this game. The reason being was that he had a hand injury, which knocked him out for about 8 days. So I sort of gave the starting spot to Lou Williams, thinking that he might be able to step up and make his case. We didn't shoot particularly well in this game. Jordan Clarkson had to play some minutes anyway from the bench. Despite the poor hand, he didn't shoot very well. So maybe that was a factor. Maybe I should have just dropped Jordan Clarkson, just put someone else in, really, despite the injury. Anyway, so after the Indiana game, we then beat Miami, which was really good. Ingram just really sort of stepped up and again sort of showing that he's been one of our sort of most consistent performers this year, which was really good to see. Gobert had a really interesting stat line against Hassan Whiteside, who obviously had a really good game. Surprised that he didn't win the Player of the Game really, with 14 rebounds, 20 points, and 5 blocks. I mean, that's a really good stat line. But Gobert struggled against him again, fouling out quite quickly within 22 minutes. So that's something to bear in mind if we, if we do ever have to face Miami again this season, that we might want to look at sort of perhaps giving Gobert some support in there so that he doesn't get into that foul trouble, because he's just ineffective when that happens. Looking at Russell again, he didn't shoot particularly well. Jose Calderon didn't shoot very well, and it was generally a bit of an off night for us, to be honest with you. So we kind of moved on, even though we got the win there. But I mean, I genuinely don't know how we got the win there, to be honest with you. We didn't shoot as well. We kind of got it from beyond the arc, really, it looks like, and possibly by getting to the free throw line, which is promising. But there were some warning signs there, I felt. We then went to Houston, a team that, to be honest with you, should be in the playoff hunt, but have been terrible so far. I think that when last time we looked, they'd only won 10 games this year, so they hadn't been playing very well, which was interesting. But I mean, they got the win here, and Harden just sort of exploded on us, really. But we shot okay. We didn't play any real decent defense against them, which cost us, as well as the turnovers. I mean, Calderon 5 turnovers. The whole starting 5 really had some poor coverage in terms of turnovers. So we didn't play particularly well in that one. And then we went to San Antonio, and this is kind of where it all kind of fell downhill, really, in terms of this month. So we obviously got completely blown out by San Antonio, and you'll notice that Ingram only started 4 minutes in this game. Didn't foul out anything. And, well, it turns out after this game, Ingram suffered an injury. And not just any injury, he's actually suffered a broken ankle. So that's pretty much going to limit him out for the next couple of months, which is going to be a serious dent to any of our playoff hopes for this season, really, because we were sort of battling in there, and I think at this point we were just hanging on to the 8th seed when we came to this game. But obviously we got blown out, and we lost who's probably been our best player this year in Ingram. So what I did was I had to I did look to see whether there was any sort of trade options available, and there was nothing really that was standing out. I didn't want to give too much away in terms of assets, and I kind of just played with the rotation a bit. So you'll see here that obviously we went with Calderon and Clarkson in the backcourt still. I moved Nance Jr. because I felt that his shooting, his range of shooting, and his ability to sort of demonstrate that, obviously not from beyond the 3-point line too much, but within sort of the mid-range game, I felt that he might possibly do okay in the small forward position, which meant that we could bring Mozgov back in and just play almost a big lineup, really, with obviously Russell, Scola, Williams being the main guys who are supporting. Some of you guys are probably sitting there thinking, why didn't I just put Meta World Peace in? And well, I don't think he's good enough, to be honest with you. He's great as a veteran sort of locker room presence player, and he does have some defense, but I just felt he'd be too much of a liability for us to really put him in at starters minutes. So that's why we didn't go with him. I did have a little look at Nick Young as well, I will say, but I just felt that I wanted someone in there who could still rebound the ball fairly well, and who wouldn't kind of be too much of a liability in terms of shooting and stuff. So that's why I sort of moved Nance Jr. across, because I felt that he's got some similar sort of all-round stats that meant he could handle himself there. He obviously won't be truly effective in that position, but I felt that he was the best option. So we had to do a little bit of a tweak into the starting rotation, really, and we then went to Orlando, in a game that I sort of said in the last episode that I expected us to win, because Orlando haven't been playing very well this year, but we kind of got beaten up here. Vucevic dominating Gobert inside, again limiting him to just 17 minutes. When our starting centre just plays 17 minutes, we're always going to be in trouble, because we haven't got anyone who can really come in and make an impact. Scola can come in and do some time there, but he's not going to be truly as effective as if we had Gobert on the court, really. So we lost that one. We then went to Cleveland, and surprisingly we got a win here. I don't know how we managed it, but we managed to just, Lance Jr. seemed to match up really well against LeBron James in that he had a fantastic night. 20 points, 10 rebounds, blocks, steals, assists. He pretty much did everything. Obviously LeBron still had a really good game, and Irving had a good game, but we really limited the rest of their rotation to some poor shooting. J.R. Smith maybe got a little bit off the bench for them, and Chris Anderson, but Love, Thompson, Shumpert, we really, really did limit them. And Clarkson had a fantastic night, and even Russell came off the bench and played well. Even though he got 4 turnovers, he shot pretty well. So that was a bit of a shock for me. I was really happy about that, because I was thinking, okay, the Orlando game, we lost that, but the Cleveland one, we kind of got it back there. A game I didn't expect to win, really. So maybe we could keep that .500 record going. If we lost 3 games, we had Cleveland up next, and Washington, and San Antonio, and Charlotte. So I was probably only expecting 2 wins out of that. And we only really got 1. So we lost to the Clippers again, got blown out again. Seems to be the common theme against whenever we play the other Los Angeles team. But again, Blake Griffin played really well. We just struggled against him, and it was the same sort of thing. Russell didn't shoot very well from the bench. Nick Young was pretty atrocious in his limited minutes. Just seemed to chuck up shots for no reason. Nance Jr. was the only one who kind of came up with this one relatively respectable, possibly Clarkson as well. And then we played Washington, and to my surprise, we got a win here with Clarkson really, really stepping up his game and filling in for the injured Ingram. So that was really good to see. And Russell just had a good game for the bench again, and Nance Jr. sort of really starting to excel in that small forward position. So that's something we might want to have a little look at, because he seemed to get the rebounds, he seemed to shoot okay, he took a lot of shots, but he was okay. And perhaps that's something I want to look at in terms of, I've said at the beginning that Nance Jr. is probably not going to be our starting 4 if we want to win a championship, but he certainly could be a rotation piece, playing 25 minutes, playing in small forward and power forward. That seems like he could be effective off the bench from there. We then went into the sort of the Spurs game, or the San Antonio, I can't remember what they're called in this, but San Antonio Outlaws, and we got beaten down again by them. They're one of the best teams in the league again. This time Kawhi Leonard performing very well for them, and Calderon having a bit of a terrible night, really. Not particularly doing well, turning over the ball a lot. Nance Jr. did okay, and so did Mozgov, and Gobert didn't shoot particularly well, but we lost that one. And then we've just recently played Charlotte, and we lost that one as well, which was a disappointing one, because I thought that was where we might have got our sort of second win in that back end of January, and obviously that wasn't to be. Calderon sort of fouled out against Walker in the backcourt there, which meant Russell had to play some heavy minutes, and he didn't shoot very well in that sort of huge amount of minutes that he got given, so not particularly great there. So where we're currently sitting at the moment is, obviously we're on that 20 and 24 record, which means we're sort of quite a bit outside of the playoff hunt, really. 4 games back now, just lost 2 in a row. It's been our sort of away form that's been pretty terrible, only winning 4 games. And if you look at all the ones who have been in sort of that top end of the playoff hunt, they've sort of managed to do better away from home than we have. So we're still in the mix. It's still promising. It's now looking at sort of February time, looking towards that trade deadline towards the back end of February, and we've got the All-Star game coming up. So what I thought I'd do for the rest of this episode in a minute is we'll just play through until probably just before the All-Star game, and then the next episode we'll probably do a bit of an All-Star game / trade deadline series, part of this, and see if we can make any moves, really, and see whether we are, because for me, I think if we can come out of this next few games, I mean, who have we got? So we've got Minnesota, Memphis, New York, Toronto, Boston, Cleveland, Oklahoma, Utah, and then that's probably it. So if we can probably, let's think, so if we could probably win, I'd say out of those, what's that, 3, 6, 7, 8 games, if we can win 5 of those, that might put us back into the playoff hunt, which would be really promising. Because for me, I think if we can sort of stay in the mix whilst Ingram's out for the next couple of months, possibly we might be able to get him back just before the sort of the rush towards the end of the season, depending on whether we can get him back fit and playing in some solid minutes again, or if we come out of this next few games and we lose sort of 8 straight, then we're looking at sort of lottery territory again, and our entire trade strategy for the deadline is going to completely change again. So this is why I've stopped it here, and I felt for you guys, we'll sim through this, we'll see how we get on, and I think a lot of what is going to happen over the next 15 days in terms of the game time here is going to play a real big effect on how the rest of our season goes in terms of our strategy. I'm not willing to give up huge amounts to try and jump and get into that playoffs. Likewise, I know this is going to be a bit of a longer term one, and we're focused, on developing some of our players to try and get us into that championship, contention over the next year or two. So let's have a think about this. So in terms of the rotation, I'm fairly happy with this. I think there may be a case for possibly dropping Mozgov and putting Skola in, possibly. Let's have a think about this. So how's he been doing? I mean, we commented that he's been looking okay. So he's not been shooting particularly well. He seems to be getting some points in some minutes. His shooting seems a bit random in terms of why is he shooting threes? Has he got a sort of a tendency to hit that sort of shot? Possibly, some above the break game, and I'm not going to spend time developing that because we don't want to keep him. So I'm not going to waste my time on that. Let's take a quick look at Russell. So he's not been shooting particularly well. He's taken a terrible amount of shots from beyond the arc, which is one of his tendencies. So there might be a case that we want him to drive in a little bit more, possibly, rather than. Let's have a look. What's his corner shot like? His corner shot's pretty awful. He's not taking many of them though. He's posting up a little bit. Let's see if we can let's just do a little bit of training. Let's just see whether we can get Russell to be effective, because I'm still not sold on him, and I still would be interested in trying to develop him at least a little bit. So let's see if we can do that. Let's go and have a look at this. So I'll keep the rotation as is. Thinking of the sort of instructions, let's think about this. So let's see, for a month, let's get him to let's think about this. So let's get him to drive and pass a little bit more rather than catch and shoot. Let's try that. Let's see if we can get that working. It might help him a little bit. So like I said, in terms of the rotation, I think I'm going to leave as is for next game. Who have we got coming up next? Who did we say it was? So we've got Minnesota next. So I think, thinking about that, let's keep it as is. I think we'll go big against them and see how we get on. See whether we can get that, those wins that we need to get us back into the playoff mix, rather than sitting those 3 or 4 games out. So here we go. I'm just going to sim it through. I'm not going to play the games in this one. If we have any sort of crucial games, maybe I might sort of stick in and do a quick play on it, but I think let's just sim through and see how we get on, and we'll just talk about the games as they sort of come up. So we lost that one by 2 points. That's a killer. Okay, yeah, so they obviously shot very well. Interesting, Jordan Hill had a really good game from the bench for them. Came in and made a bit of an impact, and for us, Skola just killed us. Look at that, 3 of 13 shooting. Nick Young as well. The thing is, I can't go any shallower in my rotation. I've got to allow people to come off. I can't just play my starting 5, which is that's annoying, isn't it? Let's go back to the roster. Who have we got sort of in this depth chart? Let's have a look. So looks like we've got Williams coming off the bench mainly. Where's Young? Young's coming in at the small forward position. Okay, yeah, that makes sense because we haven't really got any depth there. Perhaps there is an argument then. I know I just talked about it, but perhaps there's an argument we put Meta World Peace in above Nick Young and see if he can do something. Even if he just gives us a bit of defence, that would be fine. So let's readjust this matrix. Let's have a look. So we've got Scola playing 24 minutes still. Clarkson playing solid minutes as well. Nick Young again, good, not playing any minutes. Meta World Peace is going to fill in the void there. And interestingly, that's good because it looks like if we got sort of fitting in there. So it looks, yeah, okay. World Peace is going to come in and cover at the small forward position. Let's try that. Let's see if he can step up. As a veteran, see whether he can make anything. So obviously next up we've got Memphis, who are I think they're in the playoff hunt as well. I think if I looked right, they were sort of just outside. Yeah, so this is a game we really want to win. Let's see if we can make it happen. Let's have a look. Yeah, looks like we've got the win there, and a good win as well. That's really good. So did he make the difference? Yeah, look at that. Meta World Peace came in and 5 of 7. Look, that's a statement, isn't it? And that's him just reminding me that he's actually still got some value. So definitely better shooter than the likes of Nick Young. So we'll keep him in there definitely. I'm happy with that. We limited their shooting. We played some solid basketball. Jordan Clarkson obviously winning the player of the game there. So that's good to see. So let's move on. So we haven't got a game this episode, so this day. So let's move on. So next up we've got New York Metro. So again, a game we really should be winning because New York have been struggling throughout this whole year really. They haven't really managed to get anything going together, and we have got the win. Close win by 5 points, but a win's a win. Meta World Peace didn't shoot particularly well in this game, but he was up against, I think, the likes of Carmelo Anthony, so we'll let him off in this one. But interestingly, we didn't shoot as well as them, but it looks like we kind of made it count at the free throw line, and we shot really well from 3-point range, 14 to 26 there. Jose Calderon getting the player of the game, so that's interesting. He did commit 5 turnovers though, which isn't particularly great. So Gobert obviously did pretty well as well. Nance Jr.'s shooting okay, sort of filling up the stats as well. So that's a good win. We needed that one. So let's move on to the next game. So when's our next game? What have we got next? So we've got next coming up. Got Toronto, then Boston, then Cleveland, then Oklahoma and Utah. So Toronto is probably one of those games we want to get a win against. Where are they sitting in the East? So they're borderline playoff in the East, so that'll be a tough matchup for us. Let's see if we can make it happen. It looks like they've been doing okay this season. They're similar sort of record to us actually. Let's see how we go. Hopefully we can nick it. No, looks like we haven't got it. Looks like we've lost quite heavily there by 13 points. We didn't shoot very well at all. Yeah, didn't shoot. Not a great night there. D'Angelo Russell killed us again on his shooting. 1 of 10. That's not good. Obviously struggled against Lowry this time. Who had the player of the game. So disappointing loss there. How are we looking in terms of standings? It's just 2 games back. We're so close. Portland and Minnesota are above us. So this is going to be a big game. Boston, I'm not expecting to win this one. Boston, like I said, have been playing really good basketball this year, and again they've beaten us again by 7 points. Not too bad. Didn't shoot very well again. That second quarter is killing us. Let's take a look at that. Let's see if we can sort of try and crack that. See if we can work a way to sort of improve that second quarter. So who have we got? We've got Russell in there, Calderon. What's different here? So, maybe we don't go back to back with Russell. We put Calderon in there, and we limit Russell's minutes a little bit. Perhaps that might help. Perhaps he's just been killing us in terms of his shooting coming off and getting tired there. So maybe if we split him a little bit. Likewise with these guys, Clarkson and Williams and so on. Let's see if we can just flip them round. See whether that has more of an impact in that second quarter. I'm happy with Meta World Peace and Scola. I might put Mozgov in possibly at centre for a few minutes. Put Thompson in here. Sorry, not Thompson, Robinson. Scola could play some centre. Let's see how that does. We've mixed it up a little bit. Just try anything really. See if we can get anything going. So when's our next game? So next game we've got coming up is against Cleveland. So we'll sim to this date. Cleveland's going to be a real tough game. Like I said, we beat them last time, and I didn't expect us to get the win. They've obviously are one of the favourites in the East. I think they're top of the East at the moment, if I remember rightly. Not been doing as too well as Golden State, but they've been playing fairly well. So it's going to be a tough game for us to win. They're 34-14. So if we can limit James, maybe. Looks like we haven't got the win there. Let's take a look and see what's happened. So it looks like we've got blown out a little bit here. Again, that second quarter is not particularly great. Fourth, we didn't play very well either, but that second quarter. So, yeah, it looks like James just killed us. I mean, 32 points, 6 assists, 6 rebounds, 2 blocks and 3 steals. That's really good. It looks like we limited sort of Irving to some poor shooting, but Love sort of got some better shooting last time, which is interesting. J.R. Smith seems to be doing really effectively for them off the bench against us. So, unfortunately, another loss there. Next up, we've got the Oklahoma. So another tough game against Russell Westbrook, but a game that we need to get a result against. 22-28. We're starting to slowly slip out of that playoff hunt at the moment. Obviously, there's still lots of games to go in terms of this season, but I think that it's so tight that we'll either have to think about where we're going to position ourselves, whether we're going to try and make a run for this, or whether we just sort of pack up shop for the season, let our youngsters play, and just come back next season afresh. But I'm not willing to give up yet. See how we get on against Oklahoma. Can we get that win that we need? No, we can't get that win. So it looks like we've lost by 7 points again. That second quarter just killed us, but it looks like we managed to hang into overtime here. But we still can't crack that second quarter. I haven't seen a score over 20 points in the second quarter for a while now. So there's obviously something going fundamentally wrong there. We just shot pretty terribly. Russell Westbrook, triple-double against us. The guy is insane. He's obviously having a real good season in real life, and he's pretty much replicated it here. I mean, the guy just had a beast of a game against us. Just nothing you could do about that. Next up, we've got Utah, which I think is our last game before we get towards that All-Star break. It's going to be a tough one. If we can just get one more win, just puts us back in sort of contention here. See how we get on. Another loss by 3 points this time. That's frustrating. And look, we finally had a good second quarter. Can you believe that? 30 points. Just the first quarter killed us. Let's have a look here. So Clarkson didn't shoot particularly well. Scola didn't have well. Meta World Peace just decided to chuck up shots, it looks like, from 3-point range. Looks like obviously we must have been chasing at that point. Not great. Looks like we're sort of slowly sinking out of this playoff hunt here. If we look at the conference here, yeah, look, we're 4 or 5 games back now, which is not great. So obviously, that's our last game before the playoffs sort of get into an effect. But let's take a little look. Let's have a look. So we have Lou Williams. Looks like he's injured. He's got a sore foot now as well for a couple of days, but he'll be back before the next game. So that's not too bad for us. Let's have a little look around on the trade block. Let's see if we've got any movement yet from teams. Look, so we've got some options here. Looks like Brooklyn have already started going into that tank mode. Looks like 1934. They're just looking to rebuild because they've just chucked everyone on the block, it looks like. Let's have a little look through. Again, same with Dallas. Dallas are in full tank mode, looking to destroy a couple of their contracts and get them off their books. Draymond Green, interestingly, is on the trade block by, they're 50-3. So when I had a look at this earlier, it was because he was unhappy. Oh no, that's not. Why am I clicking Durant? I want Draymond Green. It was because he was unhappy, I think. Yeah, so he's unhappy with the team. But I did have a little look before I started this sim to see whether I could make a move on him, because he's been on the block for the whole time now, and they still were reluctant to move him. They were just sort of accepting the fact that he was unhappy, because they've just had that chance to win the championship. So maybe they'll just sort of go through with it and just look to offload him in the off season when they can sort of get an adequate replacement, really. Looks like Houston are sort of mixing up a little bit here. Looks like they've got quite a few guys on the rotation. Perhaps Trevor Ariza might be someone we might want to have a look at. He's on a short-term deal, possibly could fill in for us at small forward whilst Ingram's out, so there's possibly an option there. Let's have a little flick through. Whiteside, interestingly, is on the trade block. They obviously, Miami are not playing particularly well. He's not unhappy, so maybe that's a case of them just deciding they're going to try and just get off his contract and just go into the draft and see what's there. Looks like some of the other guys, it looks like New Orleans have made moves to clear people as well. New York have just put everyone on the block basically, so there might be some options there because possibly we might want to look at taking a punt on someone there, like see if we can take a punt on someone like Rose, who's an expiring deal. He might give us a bit of a push from the bench, might be more of an adequate replacement to Lou Williams possibly. Orlando have sort of got a couple of guys on there, they're not doing particularly well again. Same with Phoenix. It looks like a lot of the teams that are sort of looking at rebuilding have already sort of made moves to put people on the block. Toronto, interestingly, when I looked at Toronto, they were in the playoff hunt last time I checked, but it looks like they're struggling again now, and their sort of record is down. And Utah still got George Hill on the trade block, but they've added Joe Johnson now, and it looks like Washington have got things on there. So it looks like something. It looks like it possibly could be some option for us. Before we sort of just end up this episode, let's just have a quick look to see whether any other trades have happened, see whether we can recap. It looks like we've had one there with San Antonio, so we'll catch that one in a sec. Let's just quickly scroll through and have another quick look, see whether anything else is going on. It doesn't look like anything has made a move, so let's quickly check January. No, so it looks like there's been another move. So let's quickly comment on that before we end up this episode. So it looks like San Antonio moved, Dwayne Dedmon, Dejounte Murray, and for Deron Williams. That's interesting. So San Antonio have sort of stepped out and made a move to bring in another point guard, another veteran point guard, which makes sense. They're obviously looking for that title as well. Deron Williams is obviously a more than adequate point guard still for them. Where are they putting him? So it looks like they're starting him as well. It looks like they've moved Tony Parker to the bench. So that looks like it's going to be a real solid move for them. That was a really, really good move. If we look at where they, obviously Dallas, who also made the deal. So let's have a look. So they've got Dedmon, who's a defender, but he hasn't got anything else really going for him. He's got a bit of height, so maybe that, possibly thinking at 26, he's pretty cheap. And Dejounte Murray, so possibly having a look at him. I mean, he's on a cheap deal as well. Maybe they just felt that Deron Williams was probably maybe a bit unhappy. They weren't performing very well. Felt it was time to sort of just move his expiring and just see whether they can pick up anything to perhaps just give him a bit more of a youth. I mean, Murray's only 19, so perhaps they're hoping that he develops. I mean, he hasn't got a great room for development anyway. He's never going to be a standout, typical point guard with some really good passing. So maybe they've just taken a little bit of a punt there on him. He was doing okay in the D League. I mean, he was shooting pretty well. He played a handful of games for San Antonio, so maybe they're hoping he sort of pans out possibly for him, feeling that the expiring contract may have been worth the gamble. So it'd be interesting to see how that one turns out as well. I think for me, San Antonio have won that one hands down. Deron Williams is still a really good player, and the expiring contract, it's an easy one for them to just a bit of a rental for the extra half of the season and playoffs, see whether he can tip him over the edge. But that's where I'll leave it for now, guys. We'll sort of next time I don't know what I'm going into here, but next time we'll jump into the All-Star games. We'll play them through, just the All-Star game probably. We'll probably just comment on the rookie game before we look at the All-Star game. We'll comment on some of the events that go on with that, and then possibly, depending on if we have time, we may go into looking at trade deadline moves, or we may look at doing a whole episode on that, depending on what we're thinking. But as always, guys, if you have any comments or suggestions, or have any ideas of what we could do to possibly get us back in the playoff hunt, or whether you're thinking, Coach Fury, just don't bother, just go to that draft now, just shut up shop, leave it till next year, and have another go. put it in the comments section below, and if you're interested in following the series along, just hit that subscribe button and you can follow it every episode as it comes up and it's loaded.